Good day and welcome to lesson 38 in our study of the book of Mark. If you've been following us along, you'll realize that over the past few weeks we've followed Jesus up to Caesarea Philippi, where he talked to the disciples who were really having a hard time understanding what was going to happen in the future. They believed Jesus as being the Anointed One, but they could not understand exactly where he was coming from or what was going to happen in the future. They still thought that the Messiah would be someone who would lead them against the Romans, who would develop and create a kingdom on earth with which they would have a part. So he took Peter and James and John with him to the Mount of Transfiguration, where he showed them the glory of God, the glory that was in him, his true nature, and tried to impress upon them what was coming. Peter wanted to build tabernacles there right at the time and forget about anything else in the future. Just be with him, Elijah and Moses as they were on that mountain. But then when they come back down from the mountain, they get sort of back into what was considered the real thing, the real life. The other disciples had been trying to do some healing while they had been away, and was trying to drive out a demon from a person, and they were unable to do so. And they could not understand why this was happening. And Jesus said to them, this type of demon can only be driven out through power of prayer and fasting. So this was the situation in which they were now in. And they left Caesarea Philippi to go back to Capernaum, which is a distance of about 60 kilometers today. Maybe longer in those days because of the roads and the situations, but about 60 kilometers in all. And it says, they departed from there, which is Caesarea Philippi, and passed through Galilee. But Jesus did not want anyone to know what he was about or that it was actually him. He did not want anyone to know it, for he taught the disciples and said to them, he was there to teach the disciples, not to heal others, not to deal with others. That part of his ministry on earth was past. He now wanted to teach the disciples. And his ultimate destiny had not yet come. So he taught the disciples, the Son of Man is being betrayed under the hands of men, and they will kill him. And after he is killed, he will rise the third day. And he had talked to them about this before. He had told them this before. But they could not grasp this whole idea. This was not in keeping with their concept of what the Messiah would be and what they thought the Messiah would bring. They did not understand this saying, but they were afraid to ask him. They had a great respect for Jesus, and they had somewhat of a little fear of Jesus, but they still did not understand what he was saying. They could not understand what he meant when he said that he would be betrayed, would be killed, and would rise again. So when he came to Capernaum, and he was in the house, probably Peter's house, because Peter's house was at that time sort of a staging area or a retreat for the group. He asked the disciples, what was it you disputed among yourselves on the road? Because as they had come down from Caesarea Philippi, they had been talking amongst themselves. They had been discussing, and some people say they were actually arguing as they did this. Jesus probably knew what they were talking about, but he asked them directly, what was it that you were disputing about? But the disciples didn't want to tell him. He probably knew anyway, but they did not want to tell him. They kept silent because they had disputed among themselves if this new kingdom was going to come, who among them was going to be first, the greatest, the first of all, the greatest in the new kingdom. This is the total idea against which Jesus preached. He did not preach about some of them being great, or some of them having a high position of high authority, but they believed it because this is what they believed the Messiah would bring, a type of government, a type of kingdom in which they, the disciples, would be part rulers with Jesus. They would have high positions of high authority. So they had disputed among themselves, who's going to be the greatest of all the disciples? Who's going to be the first? And Jesus said this, if anyone desires to be the first, he shall be last of all and servant of all. The last shall be first, and the first shall be last. Luke 22:27 said, Jesus said that I am among you as the one who serves. Matthew 20:28 says, and Mark 10:45 also says that I did not come to be served, but to serve and to give my life a ransom for many. Matthew 20:16 says, the last shall be first and the first last. Many are called and few chosen. So he's saying again to them, if anyone desires to be first, he shall be the last of all and servant of all. Not the greatest, not the one of high authority, not the one in high positions. The world around us, people strive to become from the lowest to the highest. They want to be of a higher and higher position of authority, of influence, of power. But that's not what the Christian viewpoint is. That's not what Jesus taught. He said, whoever is going to be first shall be last, and the last shall be first. And he illustrated this by taking a child who was evidently present in the house. He took a child and set him in the midst of them, and when he had taken them in his arms, he said to them, whosoever receives one of these little children in my name receives me. And whosoever receives me receives not me, but him who sent me. So the idea is, this short section is one of humility. It's one of being humble. Jesus was humble in his own aspect. He was humble to the point of death. And he implied that those who came after him would also be servants. They would serve others, more so than be served themselves. This is all throughout the New Testament. It's actually in the Old Testament as well. It talks about the suffering servant in both Psalm 22 and in Isaiah chapter 53. So that this is not a new concept. Christ came to serve. In Luke 9 verse 48 it says, for he who is least among you shall be the greatest. So this in little section, he was trying to teach the disciples what would happen to him and what his purpose on earth had been, to serve. He came not to be glorified, not to be set on a pedestal, not to become a great person on earth. He came to be a servant of all. And those who follow him must equally accept the fact that they are to be servants and not to be served. So he sat down these disciples to teach them this small lesson and to tell them by demonstration with a child. Whoever teaches comes, if anyone desires to be first, he shall be last of all and servant of all. Whoever receives one of these little children in my name. Children may be a metaphor for anyone who is in need, anyone who needs help, anyone who needs comforting. Whoever receives these in my name, and whoever receives me, receives not me, but him who sent me. This is a brief study, a brief section of this chapter, but an important one to illustrate the main idea of Christ's coming, to serve and not to be served. And that's all we're going to do today. So thanks for watching. I hope you'll join me next week as we continue on in chapter 9 in the Gospel of Mark. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.